Hello, CHistrue here, and I'm going to make a short, very playful video challenging the positions of both the determinist and the indeterminist. And this is in the spirit of fun, so don't take this too seriously. It's 1 o'clock at night, and I just had to let loose a little bit. Here it is. The determinist argues that if they knew the position and momentum of every single particle 3 seconds after the Big Bang, they could predict a coin toss, heads or tails. The indeterminist would not go that far. They would say, well, but what about quantum physics? How would you know the position and the momentum of any given subatomic particle in a given time? You would have to respect Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. But I think they would still agree that if they knew a lot of the information about, I don't know, the rotation of the Earth and air currents and the position of the coin on the hand, the neural pathway of the person, so that they could predict something about how far the hand would go, that if you had a lot of information, you could get pretty close to 100% prediction. It wouldn't be deterministic, but it would be pretty close. So, in some sense, whereas to us it's a 50-50 probability, to them, to these two really, really brilliant individuals, it'd be either 100% to 0 or 99 to 1. And yet, the really, really brilliant determinist who knows everything and therefore can predict the coin toss has a problem. And that is this individual, he or she, would have to predict their own decisions in the future. In other words, you have a certain neural pathway that you would have to know and then predict what you are going to do. You would, in a sense, not only have no free will, but you would actually have no, even the perception of free choice. Okay? And so there's a little bit of a difference philosophically between free will and free choice. That is not something that I'm going to explore right now. But you would have no, well, let's put it this way. Even if you sidestep the whole question of free will, if you knew what, if the brain knew what it was going to do in the future, then the brain could change that. That may or may not imply free will in some kind of ultimate sense, but it would imply it in some sense. All right, some kind of relative sense. So the determinist would literally have to have no, not even the perception of free choice. Otherwise, the determinist would tamper with the universe, and the universe wouldn't be determined anymore. Now, the indeterminist doesn't have quite that problem. Okay, so the indeterminist, their position would be a lot more consistent, but even there, if the indeterminist places his or herself into the situation of, let's say, an hour before the coin toss, of knowing the rotation of the Earth and gravitation and air and neural networks and as much as possible to know, they would still have to factor themselves in and therefore factor their own future decisions in. So there would still be that problem. And so the idea of a human walking around knowing everything would create a problem. And but I'm not going to discuss the question of omniscience right now. What I'm actually discussing is determinism and indeterminism. And so I'm going to leave, after having brought those two in, I'm going to leave those two aside to work out the philosophical problems of their claim that that coin toss is not 50-50. That coin toss is in fact 100 to 0 or 99 to 1. And I'm going to focus on the rest of us who see it as 50-50 and say, okay, is our position consistent that it's a 50-50 coin toss? Well, let's say the coin lands and it lands on heads. We would say, aha, it was 50-50, but now it's 100%. Do we have a problem? Do we have a philosophical problem? Now, mathematicians will say that that 50-50 is contingent on the information given at the time, that there's no ultimate sense in which a coin toss is 50-50. Coin toss is an exercise in probability based on the knowledge that we have. And I think that a good argument can be made for that. It's at least more of a consistent argument than the 100% knowledge person or the 99% knowledge person. But is the idea that there's a 50-50 coin toss leading to 100% certainty, is that consistent ultimately in the end? Well, a determinist would say that it never really was 50-50 or 99-1 or anything like that, that it was always 100%. It's just that the honest determinist who doesn't claim omniscience would say, but we could never know it. But yeah, if we could know it, it would be 100%. The indeterminist would would dispute that and would again invoke quantum physics. But in both cases, they're going to have to grapple with a very interesting illusion of time here. And that is, at least there was the perception of something uncertain that became certain at some point in the future. Now, if we're at the point where the coin landed on heads, are we justified in looking back in time and saying, but what if the coin had landed on tails? And that's what's an interesting question in my mind that would be one for both the determinist and the indeterminist. Both are suggesting that there is a universe going a certain direction in time that could have gone another direction. Now, the determinist says that there is a 0% probability that it would go in that other direction. The indeterminist would say, well, no, according to quantum uncertainty, it could have gone in that other direction. I'm leaving multiple universes aside now because I'm just dealing with what we perceive, this universe. In both cases, though, there is the whole, they're invoking something that they can never prove. And that is the idea of a universe that could have gone someplace, could have gone another direction. The determinist is saying that that possibility is impossible. The indeterminist is saying that that is possible, but both of them are invoking the idea of some kind of parallel time course. And yet, have we ever perceived that parallel time course? Have we ever experienced it? If we are going to say, and I'm going to tip my hat here and say that I know this is a little bit ridiculous, okay, because the definition of consciousness might very well be the ability to conceive of the world as being something different. That, or maybe the theory of mind, I don't know, it might be one of those two. And yeah, I personally would say that yes, you do have to conceive of those possibilities, or you do not have consciousness. I mean, that would be my opinion. But it is interesting, though, that I'm accepting that very much on a kind of faith. A faith in the ability of my reason to conceive of a coin toss that lands on heads, but that could have landed on tails. The determinist might exploit that and say, yeah, but CHistrue, you're really imagining that it could have landed on tails, but you've never experienced the coin toss landing on tails. And so really you can't prove any kind of indeterminacy. But then again, you know, a determinist might take that kind of track. But on the other hand, the determinists themselves has to assume that there are all these physical forces acting, leading to that coin landing on heads. But that is also not testable because it's not falsifiable. For their thesis to be proven, it would have to be falsifiable. And yet we can't falsify it. We can't make that coin land on tails once it's landed on heads. At least not now. Maybe when we discover parallel universes or time machine and that type of thing, you might say that it becomes falsifiable. Even then, though, note that the arrow of time, as far as we perceive, let's say we travel back in time, our arrow of time still moves forward. Just noticing that. All right, so this has been my playful, oh man, that's after 1 o'clock. So those of you who are philosophy students or physics students taking a break, get busy again. Thank you.